We lived on farms, then we lived in cities, and now we're going to live on the internet. Welcome to Primary Technology, the show about the tech news that matters. Is the Apple Exodus over? We got news about Johny Srouji, who's taking over for Alan Dye. We're going to get into that. Netflix made a bid to buy Warner Brothers, and then Paramount said, just kidding, we also want to get in on this. Australia has banned social media for teenagers under 16. You can now control your algorithm on Reels and Threads, and a ton more. This episode is brought to you by Clean My Mac, 1Password, and all of you, the members who support us directly. I'm one of your hosts, Stephen Robles. Gonna ask Jason about the movie quote, joined by my friend, Jason Aiton. How's it going, Jason?
It's good. It's very, very, very cool. I've said this many times, but we've had 2 snow days in a row, Stephen.
2 snow
Two of
days.
them. Although we didn't get any more snow today. It's just all the roads are covered in ice. The worst thing that can happen to you in Michigan is it snows, and then it gets warmer because then the snow is heavy as you, and then you have to shovel it. But then the temperature drops back down to like 20, and all of that freezes. That's the worst scenario because now literally I had to put the snow tires on the Tesla yesterday because otherwise they're basically like a bobsled.
And you do you do that yourself? Put all the snow tires?
No. I go to the tire place. I do not do that myself. I do not have a jack to lift up a 5,000-pound car.
Right, it's a very heavy car. Yeah, that little jack that comes in the trunk is not going to handle it. That's, I have to say, not to be blue, but Jason's in a funny mood because our entire pre-show, Jason was just cursing up a storm. And so if you want to hear our pre-show, you should go to join.primarytech.fm and support us there. Just kidding. He wasn't really cursing. But
I didn't really curse. I try to keep us from getting an explicit tag.
Thank you very much. Do you know where that quote was from? It's a movie I've seen.
It's a movie you've seen. First, we lived in cities. Then we lived on farms.
We lived on farms. Then we lived in cities. Now we're going to live on the internet. It's the perfect quote for today's episode.
Hold on. Let me look at the rundown then. I'm just kidding. I think...
See, you always act to be unsure, and then you're just going to...
No, I think it's probably... I mean, it's a show about the beginnings of the internet.
Movie, yes.
I mean, a movie. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm going to go with... What was the name of the one about... the beginnings of Facebook, the Facebook network, the social network.
Bingo. Okay. You nailed it. I knew you were gonna get it. Yeah, I think that was the line.
Here's the thing. I have you know how some people can see colors when they see
synesthesia.
Okay. I don't have that, but I can picture the people saying the lines when you say them, and so I have to just backward engineer what movie was that from. But almost every line, I can picture the scene of like it being said.
Yeah. So I don't think we've ever talked about this, but aphantasia, you know what that is? Like where some people can see things in there.
Where people always see Mickey Mouse when they hear things.
That now I want to see Fantasia 2000. No, it's that some people, when you say picture a green apple, they can literally picture it in their minds, and some people don't.
You can't. I can picture a green apple.
I can too, but there's apparently it's like 50-50 split. And most people and it's like the same thing if you're reading a book, do you hear a voice as you're reading in your head or not?
Yes, everybody does, right?
No, that's the thing. This is on like half the podcasts out there in the last year has been people discovering this, that not everyone hears a voice in their head when they read, and not everyone can literally picture the thing when in their mind when you say it.
And if I read a book that's like written by an author that I know what their voice sounds like, that's the voice I hear.
Same for me. And if I don't know the voice, sometimes it's my voice. Sometimes it's like a voice like I'm just making up in my head, I guess, as I go. But some people don't hear that. They don't hear anything. I don't know. That's been on like podcasts this past year, just making the rounds. Listeners, leave us a 5-star rating and review. Tell us, do you hear the voice in your head as you're reading? Can you picture things in your mind? Let's see what the 50-50 split is. But we do have 5-star ratings and reviews from Trapper's Hat Stew from the UK. Says he enjoys not knowing what Temu is. I guess they don't have it in the UK. I didn't know.
Enjoys? Did we talk about that?
We talked about Temu, I think, at some point just talking about, like, I forget what it was.
Tariffs? Maybe the tariffs.
Oh, maybe it was tariffs. Yeah, tariffs and stuff. City Bori from the USA said, hello from a fellow Puerto Rican. I am Puerto Rican, if you didn't know. And Good Game from the UK. Their son introduced them to the show and loves it. And so we have a multi-generational listeners here. The son introduced him to the show. That's pretty cool. So thank you for those 5-star reviews. We're over 400. Also forgot to mention last week, pins are shipping. So if you bought a pin, We hit the limit. I did have to buy like 50 pins, but it's okay.
So we actually didn't hit the limit, is what you're saying.
Collectively, as an audience, we didn't hit 250, but overall we did, and so they are shipping. So those pins are on their way.
You're like the guy who made the New York Times bestseller list because he bought 40,000 copies of his own book from different stores across the upper Northeast.
Literally. And the last thing before we get to the Apple Exodus. So some people asked, there was a link in our show notes to text the show for a few weeks. And then people did use that link, and then it went away. And then I forgot to check those messages. The inside baseball is I switched our host and then switched back for reasons I won't disclose. So that text link, like that was a feature of one host and not another. So we don't have that link anymore. So anyway, if you want to get a hold of us, just email podcast@primarytech.fm, or we have a community where there's like several hundred people of you listeners and viewers, social.primarytech.fm, and you can interact there. I post every new episode and you can leave comments there. So anyway, just want you to know, I did read all of those texts. Thank you for leaving them. But we're back on the host we were on before. So.
And I read every email that Stephen forwards me from one of you.
Yeah, and I forwarded all the emails. And and I respond to every email too. So it's fun. It's fun to hear. We had a crisis last week. It felt like, or last couple of weeks, it felt like every exec was leaving Apple. And it felt like the sky was falling a little bit. And so I was like, what is actually happening? And so I made a little video. I'll put it in the show notes because Alan Dye left. Obviously, he was poached by Meta. And then there was lots of retirements. John Giannandrea, kind of like forced retirement probably. And then Mark Gurman at the end of the week said Johny Srouji, the guy in the basement making all the amazing Apple silicon, might be at risk of leaving. So I'll link my video, and I tried to temper like what was actually happening and is this good or bad. And, some of the things like Lisa Jackson, who was over the environmental efforts at Apple for a long time, she was retiring. Like, this is not some kind of executive leaving because of an issue. And so some of these retirements are kind of timed. Not that they planned it poorly, but it's just because it's coinciding with someone like Alan Dye leaving and John Giannandrea moving out because of maybe the failure at Siri, it feels like there's this huge exodus. But in my video, I also talk about oh boy, my HomePod's flashing. Stop. I don't know what you're doing. So in my video, I talk about some of the replacements because usually we talk about who is leaving, but to actually look at who's taking the places of some of these big positions and what does that mean for the future of Apple. And so I won't cover everything that I did in the video, but I just wanted to mention one of the replacements is Stephen Lemay. We mentioned him last week when we talked about Alan Dye leaving, but Stephen Lemay has actually been at Apple for like 26 years. He joined Apple in 1999. He is now taking over as the head of human interface design, what Alan Dye was doing. And he was on the original iPhone team. There's a great Cult of Mac article that I'll put in the show notes, but it has pictures of Stephen Lemay with the original iPhone team, including Imran Chowdhury of Humane AI Pin fame. And so, but you'll see Stephen Lemay there, second from the right in that photo. And also there's like a photo on the iPhone launch. You see Stephen Lemay there. And I even went so far as to look at some of the patents that have Stephen Lemay's name on them. And it goes back to like different iPod models. And you'll see Steve Jobs, Scott Forstall, and Stephen Lemay. So Stephen Lemay has been at Apple for a long time. And I think what's the most telling about why this is a positive move is several current and former Apple employees really praised Steve Lemay. And so Ben Hylack, this is a previous Apple employee, he said, Steve Lemay is by far the best designer I have ever met or worked with in my entire life. Literally taught me what design is. Incredibly exciting for Apple. And another tweet, he says, this is the guy you've all been praying for. I was like, all right, well, that's pretty high praise. And then there was another tweet, I don't have it here, from a current Apple employee saying, Stephen Lemay has been my supervisor for the last 15 years. I couldn't be more excited for him taking over. And so if you just take one step back from like the headlines that feel like Apple is like dying or like this is the end for Apple, like there's actually great people moving into these positions. I also talk about the guy moving into the AI spot that was John Giannandrea. And of course, John Turnus possibly taking over for Tim Cook when he retires. I think it's actually a positive outlook. And so I enjoyed learning about who was taking over these positions, and it helped me not feel like the sky was falling. So,
well, okay. I don't know how much time you wanted to spend on this because we got to talk about, Warner Brothers.
Yeah, we're going to get to that.
But, but here's the thing. I think that I wrote down a list of names. I think I got all of them. Alan Dye, Jeff Williams, Lisa Jackson, Kate Adams was the chief legal counsel. Yep. John Gianandrea, and then Srouji. Okay. You also have to mention the next part, which is like, just kidding. LOL. Srouji's not going anywhere. We'll get to that in a minute. But all of these things are totally normal for different reasons, right? And you just have to think a little bit harder about this. And I've said this, I think, on the last 2 episodes. This makes complete sense if Tim Cook is going to retire in the next 12 to 18 months, because essentially what he's saying is, if you're going to go, you have to go now, because we cannot have a CEO transition and a C-suite exodus at the same time. So like Jeff Williams, if Jeff Williams wasn't going to become CEO, probably not because he's not capable, but because he's not that much younger than Tim Cook, that it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Then of course he's going to retire. Like, why not let someone else step into that role? Same thing with Lisa Jackson, but for a very different reason. One, she's probably made more than enough money and it's time to go do something else. But also an important distinction here is they are not replacing her. Think about it. She oversees probably the most politically controversial part of Apple right now. She oversees its environmental efforts. Currently, if you are Apple and you are trying to stay under the radar of an administration that seems to disfavor things that don't align with a political message, what you do is you let the person gracefully retire and you don't replace them. And then all of the things that they did just get moved somewhere else. They're not going to stop doing it. Like, environmental efforts are extremely important to Apple. But you don't need a former Obama administration official leading that charge if right now that's the kind of thing that makes it more complicated for the next CEO to just focus on doing his job. Like, these types of things make total sense. And all of her job functions are moving to the general counsel, who is also retiring like in a year.
Right.
And when the new general counsel comes in mid-2026, Kate Adams is going to continue overseeing sort of that government affairs, whatever, environmental efforts for a period of time until she retires, and then they're going to just get absorbed into the general counsel's office. John Gianandrea, I think it's a completely different situation. Like, I'm sorry, like, you were an AI scientist and what we needed was an AI product person. So thank you so much for your service. Here's your Rolex. You've already got 15 of them. Here's your options are going to vest. You're good to go. And Alan Dye was like, actually, Alan Dye is really interesting in the sense that, and I don't think it really matters that Stephen Lemay is taking that position, because, and I think it was on Upgrade that Jason Snell was talking about this, and I think he made a good point, which was, we have no idea other than Zuckerberg backed up a truck full of money and said, come and do this here. But Alan Dye, probably based only on the experience we've had of reading his Instagram stories, thought that his value to Apple was a lot higher than Apple thought that his value was. Yes. And he wanted to go somewhere else where he was going to feel loved. But I don't think, this is a controversial opinion, Stephen, I don't think the problems with Apple's design are Alan Dye. I think the problems with Apple's design are Tim Cook. Make it pretty. Like, I don't think that Stephen Lemay is going to dramatically change. iOS 27 is not going to be, they're not going to roll back liquid glass.
No.
I think that if we hypothesize why Alan Dye decided he didn't feel as valued, it's probably because he's reporting directly to he was reporting to Jeff Williams. When Jeff Williams retired, they did not elevate that role to a chief design officer, which is a thing that existed once at Apple with Johnny Ive. Right. And Stephen Lemay is not the chief design officer. He's the head of human interface design or whatever. Right. Apple does not value that role at the same level that it values hardware engineering, software engineering, operations, finance, all of those things. So I don't think that I think there'll be small differences, but like, we're not going to get a new settings app next year.
So I'm going to counterpoint. That was the loudest Slack notification I have ever heard. That was deafening. The counterpoint I'll take to that is, I agree that maybe Tim Cook was part of the issue, but I think insofar as that he was not editing Alan Dye like Steve Jobs edited Johnny Ive. And as we could see in Johnny Ive's tenure, he designed amazing products. He was an incredible mind, but he also had a great editor in Steve Jobs. And when Steve Jobs was no longer with us, Johnny Ive might have gotten a little too far, took all the ports out of the MacBook Pro, and that's why we got some not great designs at the end of Johnny Ive's tenure here. In current Apple, with Alan Dye and Liquid Glass, maybe a CEO that was a little more product-minded would have edited those designs and thought about usability and performance and not just how it looked. Because I went back and watched the keynote with Alan Dye in it for my video. It's like, man, they really just talk about the UI elements and how cool they are. And it was not really much focus on this is how well the operating system works. And in today's time, those are the same thing. Like, it needs to function well and look good because how it looks is also how it functions. And so maybe it was that Tim Cook was not a good editor. And so John Turnus, if he does end up taking over as CEO, I feel like he will probably edit more just because he thinks more about products, it seems like, from what I've gathered, just kind of reading his history. And I also think Stephen Lemay probably thinks more about how it functions. And there's a short interview he did with St. Paul's School, which I believe was maybe he went to during high school. And he talks about it was there when he was designing for the school newspaper, making logos and T-shirts, that he fell in love with the Mac. And honestly, I feel like it's a short line, but it's not a throwaway, because I do think the fact that he fell in love with the Mac first and loved working with Apple products ever since back then, I don't know. I feel like that bodes well for how the OSs and design will function going forward. So kind of agree, but I kind of think that someone in Alan Dye leaving and then Stephen Lemay taking over, I do think we will see more positive changes than not.
I think over time we will have less things to complain about. That's about as far as I'm willing to go. And here's the reason I say it that way is the quote you read about this is the guy you've been praying for is the worst possible thing you could say if you believe that he is the right guy for the job, because you just set those expectations, not you personally, the person,
but the guy who said
so high, and there's so little of it that's actually going to be up to him in the immediate future.
Immediately, yeah, but this is going to be years, I imagine.
They're not going to do another software redesign for 7 to 10 years.
No, but you can see a lot of, just in the last 2 betas, we got a toggle for Liquid Glass. We got a slider for Liquid Glass on the lock screen. Even just in 2-point updates, we actually have elements that let you change the UI.
Yeah, we got 2 admissions that maybe we shouldn't have done this.
That's what I'm saying. And so maybe iOS 28 and later. But anyway, we got to talk about Johny Srouji, because Mark Gurman at Bloomberg, who was breaking a lot of these executive departures over the last week, he said this was December 6th. So what was that, Friday? That was Saturday.
Saturday, yeah.
Apple rocked by executive departures with chip chief Johny Srouji at risk of leaving next. Now, of all the departures, Alan Dye leaving, some people were happy about it. I don't think most people cared. Tim Cook resigning, whatever. But Johny Srouji, it's listen, Apple, if there's anything you could look at Apple and say, they're killing it here, it's the silicon. It's the M4. It's all the M chips, the chips in the iPhone, iPad. And so it's this guy, back up a truck and make sure this guy stays. A truck of money and make sure this guy stays at Apple. And so the fact that Gurman was saying he's at risk of leaving, it's a big deal. Literally 2 days later, Johny Srouji apparently issued a memo to his own team and says, I know you've been reading all kinds of rumors and speculations about my future at Apple, and I feel you need to hear from me directly. I am proud of the amazing technologies we all build across displays, cameras, sensors, silicons, etc., across all Apple products. Together, we enable the best products in the world. I love my team, and I love my job at Apple, and I don't plan on leaving anytime soon. So Johny Srouji just had to come right out and say, that's garbage. Don't listen to that Bloomberg article. And so 2 things. One, Gurman was so wrong at that, whatever source he got for the original article. And then, of course, Gurman is the one that leaked the memo. And the fact that Apple gives Gurman leaks to Gurman the memo from Srouji to correct his own article feels wild. I feel I don't know, give it to 9 to 5 or something, rather than the guy that now has to retract his own statements. But Gurman doesn't do that either. Gurman doesn't. He never says whoops, I was wrong, or I reported prematurely. And so anyway, it doesn't look like Johny Srouji is going anywhere. And that was I don't know, that was crazy to me.
Well, and there's so many different layers to this, so I'm only going to pick 2 of them.
Okay.
The first one is, I think the important piece, you linked to the 9 to 5 article about it, but Gurman basically broke both of these pieces,
Yes,
right?
he
He
did,
broke
yes.
the story. Let me say that differently. He revealed that there was a report that Srouji was leaving.
He claimed.
Yeah. I don't think he had very good sources on that. Okay. Now,
Clearly.
I don't know if Srouji's had a conversation with Tim Cook about like, hey, so like, you know, I'm doing a good job, man. Like maybe I should go somewhere else and do a good job there. Wouldn't that be terrible for you? And Tim Cook was like, bro, you got to stick around for a while because we need you. And what is it going to take? Right? Like whatever, like fine. And then Gurman writes a story. The next story Gurman wrote, the headline of that story, it was essentially Gurman saying, you know, my sources that Srouji were leaving are wrong. Right?
This is the Bloomberg article. Apple chief tells staff he's not leaving anytime soon.
Literally two bylines in a row, 2 headlines in a row on the same byline are Srouji's at risk of leaving next. Apple chief tells staff he's not going anywhere. It's like, dude, I'm sorry, but maybe don't hit publish on that first story until we're really sure about what's going on. Maybe reach out to Srouji and find out and just ask him and let him tell you I'm not planning on going anywhere. Like
Well, you're implying maybe do some journalism? Is that what you're implying?
In sort of fairness to Gurman, the Saturday article is like his newsletter, which is basically just him spitballing about stuff, right?
Yeah, but once like the problem is the
But
string
it's
of articles.
Bloomberg. The masthead says
It's
Bloomberg.
It's Bloomberg, and also there was a string of articles before it, including the big one about Alan Dye going to Meta, and that was legitimate because then Alan Dye and Mark Zuckerberg literally the next day posted publicly that it was happening.
Also, Alan Dye quote tweeted the article. Like
Right, yeah.
He announced his departure by by linking to a Bloomberg article.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder where he got that news. I wonder who might have sent it to him. Anyway, but the Srouji thing is, I think, different. And so the second piece I was going to suggest is for Srouji, like, just look at the difference in Apple's response when it was Alan Dye considering leaving and
yes.
Johny Srouji.
Yes.
Tim Cook is like,
Yes.
sorry, Alan. I mean, like, we can't give you a bigger office or a better title. So,
Shucks.
I mean, whatever Meta might be, like, we got lots of people like you. We're fine. And we also, this was what I was going to say before. I don't think Stephen Lemay is going to get any more resources than Alan Dye had, which means he can't make that many dramatic changes. Like, Tim Cook is not going to approve a budget that says we need to redesign this, and this. He's going to be like, no, dude, you can add a switch and a toggle. That's what you get for the next budget year. So figure out the best way to use them.
Sure.
But with Johny Srouji, it's like, I mean, we have 6 dump trucks. Do we need 7 full of money? Like, tell me what the number is, and we will buy the dump trucks, and we fill them with cash and fill your garage. And if we need to build you a bigger garage for all the cash, we'll do that too. Like, just tell us what the number is, buddy, because Apple still, like, if you think about it, like Craig Federighi, John Turnus,
Joswiak.
Sure, but Srouji,
marketing.
like
He's
those
marketing.
3 people right there, like Apple today would be in a really bad situation without those 3.
Right. So anyway, Johny Srouji, he's not going anywhere. So thankful
At least
for that.
for a time.
For a time. I mean, he won't be
Because
there
it is
forever.
also possible that there was a conversation about like, hey, what's my future look like? I don't want to be CEO, but like I would like, I think there was a report that maybe he's going to get a chief technology officer title or something, like, which is sort of a promotion.
He's probably like, can I get out of the basement?
Is there an office up there with a window?
Yeah, can I
Can
get a
I just have
window?
one of those? And somebody overheard that in the hallway and is like, let's call
He's leaving.
German. He's
Oh.
leaving.
So anyway, I'm glad. But I also feel like we'll probably get to a point with Apple Silicon where it's like, all right, we're probably good for like the next 10 years. Not that I would want them to stop innovating or stop progressing in what they're doing, but like Apple Silicon is so good. Like by the time we get to M10 or whatever, like, do you think they'll do MX?
Well, I don't know, but they do need someone who is able to continue to push it forward, because when they started Apple Silicon, the things they cared about was performance per watt and efficiency and having really powerful laptops and all those types of things. And now what they need is GPUs.
Right. Yeah. And that's, yeah. And also, like, Srouji's not going to go work for Meta. I mean, I don't know Srouji, obviously, but, like, I imagine he would like to see the chips he develops in products that people actually use. And, like, no offense to Meta, but, like, what product is he going to put silicon in?
So, no, but, like, Qualcomm, Samsung, AMD, NVIDIA, there are a lot of companies with a lot of money that would take Johny Srouji in a heartbeat. And Microsoft. Like, Microsoft is trying to figure out how to make ARM PCs. Like, make them good and make them real. Like, there are companies who would buy 8 dump trucks full of money if they had to.
If they had to. Yeah, that's good. But anyway, he's not going anywhere for right now. So happy about that. All right, this is pretty massive news. Australia just yesterday passed a ban on all social media apps for users under 16 years old. So teenagers are barred from using social media apps. It is based on age verification, which we'll get into, but this includes apps like TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, X, also YouTube, which I find unfortunate, Snapchat, Reddit, Kick, Twitch, and Threads. All of that is under the ban. And this is they're the first country to do this, and now this has, regions like the EU considering a ban like this as well. And this also plays into age verification, which Tim Cook literally spoke to some people at the White House about age verification, asking to not have age verification be a responsibility of the platforms like Apple, Google, things like that, but rather let it be on the parents to use the tools like screen time and app age things. We talk about screen time, but to use those tools rather than actually place the ID verification. So the issue is so in Australia, now that these apps are banned, you have to verify your age, and there's a couple third-party companies that do this, but the age verification, one, it's not great. Sometimes it will misage kids, basically. And so KID is one of these services. Snapchat has been using one of these services for a while. But some of the parents have been said that their 14 or 15-year-olds have been verified as age 18 by Snapchat. And so the facial age verification is not 100% reliable. And also, to verify age, it might require parents to upload sensitive information to these third-party companies that actually provide the age verification. That could be like driver's licenses, IDs, whatever. And now this information is out there in public. This is Tim Cook's argument to the United States government that this could be a privacy and security issue, as parents have to send lots of sensitive information to these third-party companies for verification. Now, in this Guardian article, it also talks about this mixed responses from parents. Some parents are like, well, I've now shown my kids how to use VPNs and how that works to be able to get around the ban, because you can use a VPN, I guess, and look like you're not in Australia. And then the social media apps will not do it. Because right now, in this Australia ban, it is the social media platform's responsibility to enforce the age verification. So basically, you have to trust TikTok and then Threads and all the Meta apps and then Reddit to verify the age using these third-party companies. And it's the platforms that risk a fine of almost $50 million if they don't comply with this age verification and ban set forth by Australia. So some parents are like, well, here's how to use a VPN. Others are actually positive about it. Some are like, my kid was completely addicted to these platforms, and so now we have a mechanism to say, yeah, you can't be on them because it's literally illegal for the country. Again, teenagers life finds a way, as Jurassic Park would say. But this is a big deal. It's the first time this is happening. And I don't know. What are your thoughts on it? I saw you writing stuff down.
Well, okay. I have so many thoughts, Stephen.
Yes.
Again, I can only pick a couple because we don't have that much time, and we got to get to interesting things like fighting over Netflix or Batman,
fighting
or
over WB,
fighting over the Snyder cut of whatever
the Justice League.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't think government should do this. And I struggle with this because governments already set age limits for other things, for driving, for drinking, for buying tobacco, for doing all these. I get it. Fine. But I don't think that in this case, that this is a good idea, because to buy cigarettes or booze, you have to go somewhere, walk into a place, you hand over your ID, and they just check. And age verification in that scenario means I think most places, the last thing I bought that required age verification was Sudafed or something like that.
Exactly.
But they just scan the back of your driver's license.
Correct.
The person doesn't even have to look at it at this point. But if you think about it, when they did, you were literally handing over your name and your address to a person you don't know.
Right.
Age verification on the internet requires you to hand over your facial ID, in matching it to an identification, to a platform you don't have any relationship with that is notoriously known is redundant, sorry, but is known for using your personal information to serve you advertising. Now, I know that they've created systems where supposedly they upload the photo, they verify the age using AI, and then they delete the photo. And that's great. But do you know a thing that's true, Stephen?
What's that?
Anything that's ever been uploaded to the internet, you should just assume it's not been deleted.
It's permanent.
Deleted means we broke the file chain or whatever, but the file's still there.
Yeah, the Wayback Machine exists.
So I just think we should be really cautious about that. I also think the government shouldn't necessarily be telling parents how they should be raising their children. Now, my kids, we tried to be pretty strict about it. But Stephen, I've discovered that my 11-year-old has a YouTube account. He has not uploaded any videos, but it is not allowed. He's not allowed to. Not only do we not allow him to, YouTube would not want him to have one. And nobody. And so it's there's no scenario where teenagers are not going to figure this out. And so a much better thing to do would be for parents to have better resources to manage this sort of thing. And you mentioned screen time, Stephen.
Yes, I did.
I can't even believe you mentioned screen time.
Well,
I thought you were making a joke.
These were my very first 3 videos on YouTube were literally screen time. I was literally walking through screen time. Ironically, they still get views today, even though they're 5 years old, because they also still all apply. Screen time works exactly the same today as it did 5 years ago, which is kind of unfortunate. But anyway, I understand, and I've helped other parents set up screen time for them and their kids. And I understand it is very complicated and not ideal. And most parents don't understand it. And most parents don't actually put the safeguards in place properly. And so it doesn't actually do maybe what they hope it does. But also, as you have said, kids know how to get around it and get around things. And there's also simple things like my kids want to be able to use CapCut on their devices to edit videos because my 2 boys did want to post videos online. And so I was helping them do that. And I didn't realize CapCut basically just has a TikTok feed in it. You can actually just scroll TikTok videos in CapCut. They call it templates or whatever in the CapCut app. And the Edits app, which is Instagram's video editor, is the exact same thing. You can just
scroll. It's a bunch of reels.
Yeah, I mean, you can basically scroll reels on your microwave, on your toaster oven, in the Edits app. You could scroll wherever. And so I realized, okay, well, if I want to give them tools to edit a reel, they're going to have access to watch some videos. And so we've been trying to navigate that to say, okay, you do have time on it, but it's limited time. It's a challenge. But to say it's banned, that would include my 2 younger kids, and I would not ban them from that personally. I do try to help them navigate this and say you probably don't want to spend 2 hours in CapCut scrolling, just as a not good
just
use
as
of
a
time.
general life,
just a general life thing. And so let's limit the time, and that's a screen time setting. And if you actually can go through all the rigmarole to set up screen time, quote unquote, properly, it does work for the most part. I know some people have bugs and sometimes it messes up, but it has worked. And I have used it with 3 kids for the last 16 years, and it's been okay. Well, maybe not 16 years, but you know what I mean. Whenever we had the first iPad.
They were born and he handed them an iPhone.
The iPad 2 was the first one that my kids used. So however long it's been since the iPad 2 came out. But anyway, to have an overall ban, yeah, like you were saying, I agree. Not great for the government to enforce something like this. And the age verification methods, I feel are the worst part of it because, yeah, I would not want to send my kids' data to a random third party, nor my own data to KID, whoever this is. So hopefully this does not inspire more countries to do this. I know there have been age verification laws here in the U.S. that some states have passed, like Texas, and yeah, I don't know.
I mean, the problem is the reason that this is happening is that there are the way that social media apps are designed is harmful for people, not teenagers, people.
Just people, yeah.
There's nothing different. But again, we allow adults to make their own choices, and if you want to sabotage your life by scrolling endless feeds of garbage, fine. But I opened Instagram recently, Stephen, and I had to scroll for a while before I came across a post that wasn't either sponsored or suggested. Right? I don't even see posts from people that the Verge. I follow the Verge. then there's like 7 posts in a row that are like not from people I follow. They're just suggested or sponsored. It's like someone has a dial at Meta that just keeps turning it up and turning it up and turning it up because it makes them more money. But maybe there's like a different flaw than just saying 16-year-olds shouldn't use it. And I'm not saying that I want the government involved in designing the products. I'm saying like maybe these companies take a little bit of responsibility. And right now, when you read that article, the platforms don't want to do age verification. They want the app stores to do it, and the app stores don't want to do it. And I mean, honestly, if you use my buying cigarettes example, it probably should be the app stores because it's the clerk at the gas station who's checking your ID. It's not Marlboro. I can't even say that word. Marlboro.
It's not Winston.
It's not the company. Yes, it's not the company making the cigarettes that's checking your ID. So maybe it should be. And so in your argument, maybe the screen time type things are the right way to handle it, but nobody wants to be responsible for them getting this wrong.
Right. Anyway, if you have strong thoughts, or I'm sure we have listeners in Australia. I think we've seen 5-star reviews come from Australia. Let us know. I'd be very curious if you're a parent or if you know someone who has kids under the age of 16 that this affects. Reach out and let us know, like what you feel about this, how it's working. Do VPNs actually get around it? I'm curious. I imagine they do because TikTok probably doesn't care. They're like, oh yeah, sure, you're in the U.S., whatever. All right, this was huge news. The Netflix trying to buy Warner Brothers. So they put in a bid for $83 billion to acquire Warner Brothers Studio along with HBO and HBO Max. Now, Warner Brothers has a ton of intellectual property, including things like the DC universe. That's Batman, Wonder Woman, all of that. Game of Thrones, TV shows, all the HBO stuff. So Succession, White Lotus, whatever, all the shows on HBO. Also includes things like Harry Potter and all of that, the Zack Snyder's Justice League, the most coveted piece of content in the last 20 years, apparently. So this would be massive for Netflix. And if you listen to the Verge cast, Nilay talks about, over the course of decades, everyone tries to buy Warner Brothers. And so $83 billion, the board at Warner Brothers looks like they were entertaining this idea. But then Paramount came in and said, whoa, we're going to try and buy it too. So Paramount makes a hostile bid offering a certain amount of dollars per share that amounts to a $103 billion acquisition. So a full $20 billion more. But also Paramount said that they would buy the cable channels included with Warner Brothers, which has channels like CNN. Whereas the Netflix deal, those cable channels were not part of the acquisition. Now, I'll read from the New York Times article. In a statement, Warner Brothers Discovery said it has received the bid from Paramount and would respond within 10 business days, advising shareholders not to take any immediate action. Still, it said the hostile bid had not brought about any immediate changes. So the hostile bid is not something that they are maybe changing anything. And then the board is not modifying its recommendation with respect to the agreement with Netflix, the statement said. So Warner Brothers and Netflix, they're still like, that might happen. Now, again, this also has to be approved by FCC.
Well, it has to be approved by, first of all, like shareholders, but it also then will have to go through some regulatory approval.
Right.
And that's where things get real interesting.
Right. So tell me, why is that interesting?
Well, there's a couple things. I think it's interesting, first of all. I think that they had entered a deal. This was a deal that was like Warner Brothers had agreed to this in principle, right? And they had rejected Paramount's offer a number of times. Paramount has been trying to buy them. In fact, they were probably the reason why Warner Brothers Discovery was like, yeah, we should probably just sell. let's just get out of this business. But they didn't want to do that. And so they were going to split off CNN and the other TV broadcast or cable channels, and then the studio and the streaming service were going to go to Netflix. And so that's when it's a hostile offer, Paramount is basically saying, well, the board won't accept our offer. We'll just take our offer directly to shareholders, because ultimately the shareholders get to decide, right? And we're going to offer what looks like on paper to be more money than Netflix is offering. But the thing that's important to understand is that like Netflix's offer is only for the studio and the streaming service. The shareholders would still benefit from whatever, CNN being sold off or whatever. And I have a lot of feelings about this. I wrote about essentially for Netflix. I do like how you linked everyone else's articles except for mine, and that's totally fine.
I didn't see yours in my RSS reader.
Netflix just made a $72 billion bet against YouTube. Now, the difference between the 72 and the 83 is like the $83 billion is like with debt, whatever. Fine. They made a big bet against YouTube. And their bet is that premium content can be just as engaging to people as free content on YouTube. YouTube's unquestionable advantage is it pays $0 for the content people like Steven. YouTube does not pay Steven to make videos. They're not paying us right now to record this, right? We make this for free and give it to YouTube, and YouTube puts it on YouTube. Whereas Netflix is about to pay a whole bunch of money for the Batman trilogy and Friends and The West Wing and Harry Potter and Game of Thrones. They're going to pay billions of dollars for that. And Netflix is literally the company that invented binge watching a TV series, right? And they just feel like if they can give you more of that people will stick around even longer. Paramount, it's really hard to say what Paramount is doing, right? Because Paramount now is owned by Skydance, which is owned by David Ellison, which is run by David Ellison, who got all of his money from his dad, Larry, who runs Oracle and spends most of his time going to White House events, right?
Right.
And Trump, what happened as soon as Netflix made its offer? I don't know if this is going to work out. And then a hostile bid got launched. And I will say that is the worst part of this. Like, the government should have very little to say in picking a winner in this sort of thing. And Netflix made the point that they were giving a compliment in some ways to Warner Brothers, but essentially they're like 75% of our subscribers are already subscribed to HBO, or 75% of HBO subscribers are already subscribed to Netflix. We're not doing this to get more customers. We're doing this because we want the content. And I don't think that that's anti-competitive, because do you know where you used to watch Friends before there was an HBO Max?
Netflix.
Exactly.
Yeah, everything was on Netflix.
They're just going to put the content back on Netflix. Netflix is just going to own it, and they're going to own a movie studio. It's going to be, I guess I shouldn't say it's going to be fine, because I know basically everyone in Hollywood hates Netflix. Fine. But that's Hollywood. I'm sorry. Like, if you're mad at Netflix because they took away back end deals, like, I don't even know what that means. I just read it in an article, so it's hard for me to get worked up about it, right? Most people just care about whether they can like stream all 7 episodes of Stranger Things in one sitting. Like, that's the thing people want to do.
So and I've seen a lot of talk on social media, like there's different ages of either like conglomeration or things breaking up, and we went maybe for the last 10, 15 years, it was everything's being broken up. Because, like, I don't know about you, Jason. I imagine so. When I started paying for Netflix, it was 3 DVDs a month. They mailed it to your house, and then you mail it back.
You paid for, like, the top-end program.
Maybe it was 2 DVDs. I forget. Okay. But that was like 2000. I know this because I had just gotten married. It was like 2008, 2009, and they started mailing those DVDs. So we're talking 2009. That is 16 years ago. And so everything was on Netflix. And like we've talked before, everything was then on Netflix and or Hulu when Hulu came out. It was like if you paid for Netflix and Hulu, you could watch whatever you want the next day and you're good. Like movies, TV shows, whatever. And in the subsequent 15 years, it has been broken up. You got HBO Max. It's been broken up into Paramount Plus, Peacock, all these different things. And people are saying that now we're going through another phase of conglomeration where everything's coming together, and maybe it gets more expensive, but it's been very expensive because you had to pay for every streaming service. So maybe it means it gets cheaper. I don't know. I feel like Warner Brothers seems to struggle like long term just in like making content that people love. Like they have lots of IP that people love. Game of Thrones, historically great. Well, which I don't even know. Was that a Warner Brothers thing, or was that HBO produced it, and then because of the deals, now that's a Warner Brothers IP?
Well, I mean, they owned HBO.
Even throughout, like, back then?
They've owned Warner Brothers has owned HBO for a while.
Okay, I didn't realize that. So, so there's been, and there's lots of IP that HBO, like The Wire, Succession, like, people love all that kind of stuff. And so, I don't know. All I want to know is, I still get HBO for free because of my AT&T account, because they haven't disconnected that. And so, will I then be able to get Netflix for free if Netflix acquires Warner Brothers and my AT&T deal still stays intact? I don't know. So, but I guess what I will say is that it is actually interesting what you just said, right? So there was Netflix. It was 2007. I would like to get that posted on my wall. It is actually interesting what you just said.
There was Netflix.
In a rare event.
Netflix started streaming video in 2007 is when they started streaming. Okay. That's when they started the streaming service. Hulu started in 2008, and it was Fox, Disney, and Comcast essentially got together and they're like, we need a place to put our shows instead of Netflix, because they had this asinine idea that it would be better for them to own their own distribution than to license their stuff to Netflix. Here's the thing. When you license the show to Netflix, Netflix just gives you money, and then they show it, they host it on their servers, they acquire the customers, they just send you a check, right? When you build something like Hulu, you have to like buy servers and pay for bandwidth and do all these things and figure out deals and whatever. And it's like, it's been a mess. And now like Disney just owns Hulu because Fox and Comcast were like, well, this is stupid. Why are we doing that? Well, actually Disney owns Fox now. So that's part of it too. But Comcast was like, if you'll write us a check for $10 billion, you can just have the name, you can do your thing, whatever. And then Paramount or then NBC is like, what about if we do one? Let's do Peacock. And then Paramount's like, how about Paramount Plus? And then there's like all these different things. And it's like, and it's insane because everyone thought like if we had our own service, we would make more money than if we license our content to Netflix. And the thing is, do you know how many of the streaming services are actually making money?
That's a good question. Like the actual streaming business.
Making money?
Maybe just Netflix?
Just Netflix, basically.
Just Netflix? Okay,
basically just Netflix.
Because I'm sure Disney Plus is not making money.
I mean, Disney Plus is a complicated one because Disney's business strategy is on this like flywheel effect, right? You make a piece of content, you can it'll get subscribers here, and it gets people to come to the theme park. And
also
make
the
a
all the
here.
kids content. If you have kids, you have Disney Plus.
And there's a toy over there, and there's like all this. So it is a little bit harder to, but it just in terms of like money subscribers are paying versus price of content made. I don't think that Disney Plus is making a ton of money compared to like Netflix, right? It's just expensive. Now, but again, Disney Plus is not going anywhere. I think we're going to get to a point where there will be 4, Stephen. 4 streaming services.
It is. Let's make it. Yeah, prediction.
4 streaming services are going to survive. Netflix, obviously.
Okay.
Like Netflix is not going anywhere. Amazon Prime is not going anywhere because whatever, Amazon has ridiculous amounts of money, right? Disney Plus, because they basically have all the content that's not on HBO Max, right? They have all the Disney stuff. They have all the Marvel stuff. Yeah. They have all of the Star Wars stuff, like
they have
whatever.
Parks and cruises. They don't care.
And they don't, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And then do you know what the 4th one is?
Apple TV.
Yeah, exactly. Because they have so much money, it doesn't matter.
Right.
They can they can just post through it. It's going to be fine.
So the ones going away,
everything else.
Peacock, Paramount, who's already part of Disney. What else is out there? Like Criterion Collection?
I mean, basically Peacock and Paramount are going to go away. Now, I mean, Paramount, I don't know. They're like trying to buy all this stuff. So like they probably think they're going to be sticking around for a while, and they have Larry Ellison money. So maybe they'll be around a little bit longer, but I don't think that they should. I think they should just put Top Gun on Netflix and the Mission Impossible things on Apple TV and just like, it's fine. Like it'll be fine. Or Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime is where they should just put all that stuff because they've already got Bond, right?
They got Bond.
Put all that stuff on there. And
I do think it would be better for consumers to not have to pay for 18 streaming services, as long as Netflix doesn't become $50 a month. That's the two-edged sword, because once Netflix has everything, I mean, technically they would still have to compete against Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, and Apple TV Plus. No, you don't think
they compete against YouTube? Remember, no one's going to pay $50 a month in a world where YouTube exists.
Right. Okay. We'll see. Do you think Netflix would ever try to get into live TV like YouTube and Hulu?
Well, they are. I mean, they show football games on Christmas Day.
No, but I mean like actually have a live TV package.
You're saying a cable package.
A cable package.
No, I don't think Netflix wants. The thing about Netflix is they know what they know their business. They know what it is. Okay. And the fact that they don't see themselves as competing against Disney Plus, but rather YouTube, means that unlike most of the other streaming services, which think that they exist to show content, like whatever, Marvel movies or whatever, what they know is they just exist to entertain people.
Sure.
So I think I think that those 4 will be the ones that stick around. I don't think that we're gonna have like I don't think Peacock is long for this world, just to be honest. And I guess there's like, I mean, there are not Brooklyn a lot of other ones.
You got The Office.
But I mean, why wouldn't you just watch that on Netflix?
It all used to be on Netflix. The Office used to be there. Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
It was a big deal when Friends left Netflix. In The Office, and
I would. So I've never paid for Peacock. Well, that's not true. When the Olympics come around, I pay for a month of Peacock.
You're boosting it,
and then I cancel it.
Do you have one of those like cable switch things on your neighbor's house, and it's just feeding you Peacock? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, that's what it is. But Netflix. Honestly, as a Netflix, I still pay for it. I have 2 episodes left of The Crown, and then I was going to finish the content that I wanted to watch specifically on Netflix. But if they get all this other stuff, I don't know. I probably would be likely to just keep it because I'm like, I don't know, because I haven't paid for Peacock, but I'll watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine on Netflix.
I just think eventually it's good. And the funny thing about that list that I just made is that it's just 4 giant, essentially, tech companies. I mean, Disney is also like they have a cruise ship, but like I'm just saying, like
it's huge. It's massive companies.
Yeah, and I don't think Disney's going to go anywhere because it's Disney, ESPN, Marvel, whatever. So
yeah, Star Wars.
But I actually wouldn't be surprised when I made that list. I don't think Hulu is going to exist. I think it'll just be a part of Disney Plus.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Because
and they're already moving in that direction.
And that app is a mess. Can I just say, like, trying to find something to watch on Hulu?
Steven, I know there's things to talk about here, but I'm going to just say this for our listeners.
Yeah.
I gave up, Steven.
You gave up?
Well,
what do you mean?
I told our listeners about the 6 hours I spent trying to fix it so that we could watch Hulu with live TV because it was going to save us $40 a month over YouTube and all this other stuff. We're back on YouTube with live TV. YouTube TV. It's like it is such a disaster. Like no one at Hulu uses their live TV subscription because it is the worst user interface experience. Like Alan Dye should have gone to Disney.
I was just gonna say. You beat me to it. I was gonna say Alan Dye should have gone to
you got Bob Iger. You totally missed your opportunity.
You blew it. All right, let's take a quick break, and we'll try to do a lightning round after that. We'll see how fast we actually go. This episode is brought to you by Clean My Mac. Clean My Mac is your ultimate solution for Mac control and care, notarized by Apple and meticulously crafted by MacPaw, a leading macOS and iOS software development company. Now listen, you've heard us talk about Clean My Mac in the past. It's the end of the year. Now is the perfect time to spend a little bit of time and actually clean up that Mac, that system data that's mysteriously taking up gigabytes of storage. Clean My Mac can help you clean that up. Also, if your messages are getting out of hand, meaning tons of large attachments like video files and photos, Clean My Mac can help you get rid of those large attachments to, again, save you even more space. Plus, not only can it deep clean your Mac, but it can scan for potential threats, boost your Mac performance, and even run software updates. But one of my favorite features of Clean My Mac is when you delete an app, Clean My Mac will actually go and find all the little files that application has installed in like application support, your library folder, and it will make sure everything of that app is removed when you're ready to delete the app. So if you install lots of apps outside the App Store, Clean My Mac can help you make sure that it's completely removed when it's time to delete it. It has an assistant and a menu bar app. You can always get it at a moment's notice, and it even has cloud cleanup. So iCloud, OneDrive, Google Drive, Clean My Mac can even help you save space and clean up your cloud drives as well. So get tidy today, try 7 days for free, and use our promo code PrimaryTech, all one word, for 20% off at clnmy.com/primarytech. That's clnmy.com/primarytech. Use the promo code PrimaryTech for 20% off. Plus, you get a 7-day free trial. Delete those apps you've been wanting to get off your computer. Start the cleanup process, but you'll find that you want to keep Clean My Mac around to keep your Mac tidy. Our thanks to Clean My Mac and MacPaw for sponsoring this episode and our friends at 1Password. It's easy to assume that being small means flying under the radar, but the reality is that small businesses are being targeted more and more by bad actors. Cybercriminals know that lean teams often lack the resources to prevent or respond to a breach. So in short, the bad news is teams of any size can be a target. But the good news is even these smallest teams can foil cybercrime. 1Password provides simple security to help small teams manage the number one risk that bad actors exploit: weak passwords. 1Password provides centralized management to make sure your company's logins are secure, and it's a simple turnkey solution that can be rolled out in hours, whether you have a dedicated IT staff or not. 1Password is designed to meet small teams where they are, but it's also built to grow with your company. And compromised passwords are the number one way bad actors attack companies. So a password manager should be the first security purchase you make for your team. I've used 1Password personally for years. I still pay for it for me and my family, but I've also used it in business settings. It's the easiest to use, easy to set up, plus the apps for all the devices work great, and your team will be able to get secure passwords, manage them easily, and keep your business secure. So take the first step at better security by securing your team's credentials. Find out at onepassword.com/primarytech and start securing every login. That's onepassword.com/primarytech. That link is also down in the episode description. Our thanks to 1Password for sponsoring this episode. Okay, you put this article in here, so you tell me about it. But Victoria Song over at The Verge has a write-up about Google's glasses, not Google Glass, Although I just listened to that version history episode, and that was pretty fun, talking about Google Glass. Did you hear that?
I have not listened to that yet. But so basically, this is just the first version of the glasses that Google was demoing at I/O this year. So I tried those out.
Yeah.
And it was a fairly on the rails demo, but it was also pretty cool. Like I could look at a photo and ask it what it was, and I'm sorry, it's a painting, and it's like, yes, that's Starry Night or whatever. Like, you know, and then I could ask it like different questions. What is this plant in front of me? And it would tell me, and I could ask it how much water do I need to give it, and it would tell me, like, and it had a little heads up display thing that would happen in front of you, and you could use it for Google Maps and directions and all these different things. And this is like the first actual product of that. And I've never used the Meta Starbucks Ray-Ban whatever glasses. I don't know what they are, like the display glasses.
Meta Ray-Ban display.
Thank you. Those things. I've never used any of that stuff. And I think people who like them mostly think of them as like AirPods you wear on your face with a camera. Like that's basically what they are. These I think are interesting because they are the first. The problem with the Meta, whatever you call them, Ray-Bans with displays, is that at this point, the only, we saw the demo with Zuck and Boz, and they didn't work very well, but you were limited to basically Meta's apps. Meta made its own Maps app. You could use WhatsApp. You could do, are you going to scroll Instagram with it? I don't know. But these things run Android. Android XR, right? So theoretically, you're going to have the opportunity. I mean, Google Maps, you're going to be able to use different types of things. And I just think it's really interesting that we're actually going to see a product coming. And if they get it right, like, I actually think it could be relatively compelling. This is the thing I would hope that Apple would make an iOS version of.
That. So we will see. But no, let's go. I've yet to try any of these, and I get like PR pitches for like AR glasses, but I'm like, this just
you
looks
need
like
to get a pair and just wear them to CES.
I'll get a pair of the Meta Ray-Ban display.
Anything, just pick one. Just like
pick one.
Put them all on a roulette wheel, spin the thing around wherever the ball lands. Just buy those.
Okay. All right. I do want to try them though. All right. So Google is finally talking about agentic features in Chrome, and they're talking about all the privacy and security things that they've been trying to work through to get agentic features there. Because even right now, like Comet, ChatGPT, Atlas browser, those actually have agentic features, and I've done videos on that where it would actually take action for you on websites. Google Chrome had not really gotten there yet, but is explaining why the Gemini is coming to Chrome eventually. Basically, that there's a threat with agentic browsers where a website could do something like prompt injection. So if you turn on agentic mode on these browsers and you tell it to take action on a website, the website might put something nefarious either in the website as a prompt or something else that makes the agent do something else, like send information that it might have of you to this website or bad actor. And so Google is trying hard to protect against those things. This is one of the reasons why I don't like save passwords or do my banking in Comet or ChatGPT's Atlas browser. I just have it look for promo codes and then refresh the Apple Podcast Connect website so I can hit publish on the episode. But yeah, so eventually it's going to be coming soon. I don't know. There's no like timeline here yet, but this 9 to 5 Google article talks about some of the challenges and what Google is doing to try and obfuscate or, get ahead of that. So there you go. Would you try? Do you use Chrome? I forget.
I use Brave, bro.
But like Brave is like your default?
Yeah, I don't use Chrome. I don't even have it installed on my computer.
But you don't use your Safari as your default?
Steven, Safari is not a good browser.
Wait a minute. We can't get into this 55 minutes into an episode.
Steven, everyone knows that Safari is not a good browser. Come on.
No, I disagree.
It's not a good browser. It's an okay browser, but it is not a. It would be a better browser if the internet cared that it existed, but most of the internet does not care that Safari existed. It only cares that Chrome exists, and I will not use Chrome, so I use Brave because I'm also not going to use Edge. I would use Comet before I used Edge or Chrome. So Safari is fine. Safari is the browser I open when I'm just going to randomly do my own personal type things, right? Like if I'm just like going to open YouTube to watch something for myself, actually, this is weird. I should just like somehow log every time I open a browser and what I just did, because I actually could not tell you why I ever opened Safari. But right now, if I open Safari, hang on,
Wait, and do you use it on your phone? Do you use Safari on your phone?
Of course I use Safari on your phone.
Okay,
You
well,
don't
that's what
have
I'm
a
saying.
choice.
Because one of the benefits of Safari is if you use it on all your Apple devices, you have things like iCloud tabs, you have syncing tab groups, your profiles, like all of that carries over to all of your Apple devices.
Well, the crazy thing is if I open a tab on my iPhone in Safari and then I go down to the toolbar, I can click on that and it'll open it in Brave for me.
You mean
like
in the dock?
Whatever the thing in the dock is, the continuity thing, where it'll open it. Yeah, it'll just open it right in Brave for me.
If you open it in Safari on your iPhone,
I'm looking at a tab on my phone right now for CBS Sports. How to watch the Chargers versus the Eagles, and I'm going to click on my thing right here, Brave browser. Exact same article just popped up.
What?
From some Safari. Yeah, that it doesn't care. It's just like your default. It's just default.
Oh, because it's your default browser.
Yeah.
Because your default browser.
So I'm just saying, like, these things still work. But yeah, Safari's fine. It's great on the iPhone, and it's fine. I exaggerated a bit. Safari is fine. It is not a great default browser because for me, there are enough things I have to do every single day that just friggin' don't work in Safari.
I understand that some CMSs, websites like Squarespace, they work better in something like Brave and Chrome, but for
Riverside, the one we're using right now, doesn't work in Safari.
It actually does work in Safari. They did add that functionality.
When?
It was a few months ago.
All right, I'm switching. Hang on.
No.
Switch
but
default.
I would not.
Okay, never mind.
Honestly, for something like this, this is the one thing I use Brave for is actually recording this show and using Riverside. But Safari is my default browser on all my devices. That's all I'm going to say.
I mean, if I'm going to use Instagram or I'm going to use Facebook, I definitely am going to use Safari because it's way more secure. There's a lot of better features. Sure. But I do feel like Brave gives me a lot more control over things, and I just think extensions work better in Brave. They just do.
I mean, I have found extensions that I like in Safari, like Overpicture, Magic Lasso, things like that, and like great Mac apps like Downy work in.
But even things like the 1Password extension just works better in Chrome. The Save to Notion extension works better in Chrome.
Fair.
There's a one tab extension which I told you about where you just click it and it just makes everything one.
Yes.
Like the Grammarly extension, which is now Superhuman, works way better in Chrome. It's just
all right.
And those are things I have to use every day.
You use it all the time. Yeah,
and so it makes sense to just use. And I actually like Brave. Brave is fast. It's good.
Brave is good.
It's like Chrome without all the Google.
That. And so, I like Brave too, but I guess I'm just over here making
And instead you just get like Bitcoin and weird crypto stuff. There's weird crypto stuff. You just have to turn all of it off.
Yeah, you just turn it off. So, well, anyway,
sorry,
I forget what we were talking
about.
No, I forget what we were talking about. But let's talk about algorithms because Meta is actually trying to give you control over your algorithms. Namely, on Reels, there's now it's in the U.S. launching this week, coming everywhere soon, that you can, in Reels, select topics that you're interested in or select topics that you're not interested in and start tweaking your own algorithm. There's like a little settings icon in the top right corner. It looks like little settings, toggles, whatever. And so you can do that in Reels and I thought these are both Instagram. Also on Threads. I was looking for the Dear Algo post. But I don't know if it was Zuckerberg or Mosseri. They're actually, people jokingly would post on Threads, "Dear algorithms, show me more of this and that." And so Threads actually turned it into a feature. And so you can actually say, "Dear algo," tell it what you want, and Threads will actually tweak your For You page to include more of that content that you actually asked for. So I believe this is the first time you can intentionally kind of back-endy, like adjust what you see in the algorithmic feed on these platforms, which I think is actually a good move. I mean, ideally, you would see the things you follow. And my Threads app stays on the following feed most of the time, and it doesn't try to switch me back most of the time, so that's good. But, YouTube, you can say you're not interested, and you can do things like that, but there's never like I'm interested in this topic, show me more of this. So the fact that Threads and Instagram through Reels is doing this, I don't know. I think it's actually pretty cool. So I'm going to try it.
I mean, I think the first post of it came from Connor Hayes, which is, I think he's the head of Threads. But yes, but essentially this is just a way for you to overtly tell Meta more about you. So like ultimately,
sure.
I mean, Threads doesn't have ads, I guess, right? Like,
Not yet. I saw someone actually post this morning that they saw their first sponsored post on Threads, but I've not seen it.
Is it good that you can see more? But also, okay, I have so many. I won't get into this, Stephen. I'm sorry. I'm about to glitch. But it is better if the algorithm is better tailored towards you. Sure.
Yeah.
But the truth is, I hate the algorithm, except for it's often better for us, except for the trade-off.
It's good when it's good.
And the thing about the algorithm is it's usually better at tailoring your feed than you are. Now, I would say Threads is
not
the case, because the crazy thing is all I see now are F1 posts, because I posted a bunch of pictures when I was at the F1 race. And I'm like, I do like F1, but I also have children and I like snowmen and I'm fine with coffee. Like, you don't have to just give me every F1 post on the internet constantly in my feed. So if I want to be like, dear algo, turn down the F1, it's probably going to think that's profane. But anyway, I don't know that it's actually pretty good at knowing what you want. Like, can you imagine telling TikTok what to give you more or less of? Like, most people's TikTok feed is pretty dialed in.
And this is the thing that, like congressmen get bitten by, because they're like, TikTok only shows you this and that. And it's like, well,
yeah, sorry, Senator, but if all you're seeing are girls in bikinis, it's because TikTok knows something about you you don't want us to know.
That it's based on your watch time, how much you engage with this content. So it was actually a post from Zuck. So I'll put it, inspired by all of you who started Dear Threads Algo requests, we're going to test a new feature where if you post Dear Algo, it actually put more of that content in your feed. Now, ideally...
So don't say, Dear Algo, don't show me this, because it's just going to put more of that in your feed.
Which the next reply under Zuck's thing was, Dear Algo, please block all AI profiles from my feed. So I don't know if it's going to work like that. But if we could have that toggle, that would be nice. And TikTok, I think we reported last week, was actually testing show me less AI content for TikTok users. You can't say show me zero, but you can say less. So anyway. Dear Algo, show everyone primary technology every 100%. Thursday. Put it in everyone's
Not every
feeds.
Thursday. Show the old episodes every day.
Every day. Just put it in everybody's feed.
And then disable the unsubscribe button, please. Because if you do that, no one's going to want to be part of this anymore.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair enough. Okay, so OpenAI, we talked about the code red that Sam Altman issued last week, because Gemini is gaining traction, gaining speed, and so they're like, code red, we got to make ChatGPT an even better product. And so supposedly come January, there was rumors that we might see ChatGPT 5.2 this week, which we did not, and we're probably not going to see it before the end of the year. But come January, there's going to be a new 5.2 ChatGPT. It's going to be huge, but they're pushing on the gas. They also, and you sent me this article, Apple said that ChatGPT was the iPhone's most downloaded app of 2025, which I think makes sense. It feels like while ChatGPT 3.5 back, 3 years ago was kind of like showed the world ChatGPT, I do feel like this year is the year that people like, oh, I'm going to use this all the time. And people like have it on their home screen. They're asking it for dating advice. They're asking it, how do I change my tire? Like, they're doing all of that. Also, and I'll let you comment on all this, but just real quick, where'd that article go? OpenAI also poached Slack's CEO. So she was the Denise Dresser. She was the CEO at Slack for the last 2 years, and she spearheaded things like the Slack bot and different kind of AI tools in Slack. Well, OpenAI poached her. She's now the chief revenue officer at OpenAI. So they're trying to do that. And then also, ChatGPT can now use Adobe apps to edit your photos and PDFs. So a bunch of ChatGPT, and you put even more stuff in.
And it'll buy your groceries. They did a link with Instacart. So what I do want to say about this is, code red, we got to make ChatGPT better. I think what they mostly meant was like the GPT part, like the models we got to focus on. But then they released 2 features that are like literally the thing people want to do. Because if you think about it, like you're like, I have some pork tenderloin and this, what can I make from it? And ChatGPT will tell you, you should make this. And then you can be like, well, what do I need if this is the ingredients I have? It'll give you a whole list of ingredients. And now you can be like, buy them for me. And ChatGPT will just buy it all for you from Instacart, right? Like you can just do it all right from ChatGPT. Or you can take a photo and you can be like, I don't know how to use Photoshop, but this girl and I, we ain't dating anymore. Can you take her out of this picture? Right? And it will just do it in Photoshop for you.
That's pretty wild. So you have to have Photoshop installed. Like this is like a Mac extension. I assume.
I haven't tried it yet because I'm going to write about it. I'm literally going to write. I think I put my headline in the notes. I'm going to be like, ChatGPT will buy your groceries and edit your photos for you. Like, because these two things came like back to back, one day after the other.
So this is saying new apps for Photoshop, Acrobat, and Adobe Express are launching today directly in ChatGPT, allowing users to create designs or adjust photos and PDFs. The Adobe apps are free to use and can be activated by typing the name of the app alongside an uploaded file and conversational instructions, such as Adobe Photoshop, help me blur the background of this image. ChatGPT users won't have to specify the name of the app again during the same conversation to make it. This is wild. I'm actually going to try this with a thumbnail. I did a thumbnail a few months ago for Shortcuts, and I asked ChatGPT to like make lightning look like it's coming out of my eyes and my hands, and it actually did a pretty good job. Like, I actually liked how that thumbnail came out, but I could only do it once. It's like the guy who can like swallow dynamite as a magic trick. He's like, but I can only do this trick one time, because any other time I asked for it, it would do something crazy. Like, it would adjust me to look like something weird. Like, it did too much, any subsequent attempt. And so I tried it that one time and never again. But it's still the thumbnail out there. I'm going to share my screen because it did pretty good. But the fact that you could then do it with Photoshop, I imagine Photoshop will do less generative stuff with your image. This was the video right here, 10 powerful macOS automations. And I thought ChatGPT did a pretty good job of adjusting that image with the lightning. And I had to be very specific with the prompt. It's like, don't adjust me. Don't change the photo. Keep it photographic. Don't touch me at all. Just put lightning on this and that. They did okay. But, man, I'm going to try that now. Also, that is free to use. If you don't need an Adobe Photoshop description, that's kind of a crazy integration. So anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't had a chance to try it, but I definitely will. But I just think it's like, apparently we now know what code red means. Groceries and Photoshop.
But honestly, like that Photoshop thing, that's amazing. Because there's a lot of times, this happens with a lot of apps. Like, you know what you want. You don't know the tool to use. You don't know what a mask is. You don't know what any of that is. And so, yeah, to be able to ask ChatGPT in natural language, like, yeah, that's awesome.
Do you think that when he issued the code red, he was actually just talking about that Mountain Dew flavor, and that's how we got groceries?
When I was in high school, I drank a lot of Code Red. I was just going to throw that out there. That was big. That was a big deal. I don't even know that you probably would be illegal in today's administration.
In Australia, you're not even allowed to have Code Red unless you're 16. That's right.
Side note, I saw in that Guardian article, the drinking age in Australia is 18. So it is kind of funny that like social media and drinking is only like 2 years apart. 16, all right, you can use Facebook. 18, have a drink.
You can get drunk while using Facebook.
I was like, that's an interesting distinction. But okay, anyway.
They're about the same. They're both extremely addictive and probably not good for you in the long run.
Yeah, I would say, would I say one is worse for you than another?
Social media is 100% worse. Let's just be honest. I'm not even joking.
I mean,
I'll just say it. We all know that it's true.
Can you die from social media poisoning? No.
Well, I don't think we have time to get into that because there's plenty of stories of really bad outcomes from social media.
I don't want to get too dark, but
drinking while social media is just as bad as drinking while driving.
Drinking and scrolling. Drinking while doom.
Or driving while social media is just as bad as driving while drinking. That's what I meant to say.
So if doom scrolling is drolling, you could say don't drink and droll. Anyway, let's move on. That's only this late in the show do you get those. I have to
write my letter of resignation.
Only after the hour mark do you get that kind of joke. So speaking of governments and laws, Trump could introduce a mandatory social media review for travelers that would impact travelers from 42 countries entering the U.S. This seems like a wild story. So basically, if someone is trying to enter the U.S. from these countries, also includes like France, the U.K., Australia, that at customs you might be required to provide your social media handles and your email addresses connected with your social media accounts for review before being admitted into the country. That does not feel great to me, right?
Yeah, I mean, okay. I have a overarching worldview that covers most of this stuff, which is
yes.
There are plenty of things that I think that the government is probably empowered to do. Because, for example, if you're coming here from France, you don't have any constitutional rights when crossing the border. You just don't, right? Like,
right. You're not
if they want to look at you, if they want to decide, they can decide on any reason whether to let you into the country or not.
Right.
And if they decide to use social media for that, if like if you are someone who is just posting like death to America on your social media, maybe they won't let you in the country, right?
Sure.
Fine. I also just don't think that they should. Like, I just don't think that in a lot of cases, like I have learned over the past few years, I think we're learning right now, the extent to which the success of the American Democracy Project is just based on the goodwill of the people who hold power. Because there are a lot of things that are just laws did not contemplate that someone would want to do a thing, and so they're legal, they're allowed, they're like, and I think in this case, like I don't think that it's a great idea, because I don't think they're looking for death to America on your Instagram. I think what they're looking for is, did you like a post that someone posted that maybe it was from a different political perspective?
Right.
Congratulations on the new executive director of DEI initiatives at Columbia University, and you liked that post, and now you can't come into the country.
So I will just say this. This happens, periodically. There's a main character of Twitter. There's like someone who gets in trouble for something they posted 5 years ago.
I thought you were about to say, now it's me. It was me once, but it's not going to be me again, okay?
The one thing, like, listen, people change over time. And sometimes people post things on social media not understanding the ramifications nor the long-term effects of what they say. And that's not an excuse to post stupid things or bad things or mean things. But to hold you accountable in 2025 for something you posted in 2012 or whatever, I don't know. I'll say this. There was a time when I've been on Twitter since 2008 or 9. You've been there since the beginning too, right? And like, I don't know what I tweeted in 2010. I just don't know. And there was a moment like around 2022 where I just hooked my Twitter to a third-party service and just deleted every tweet older than 1 year because I didn't know what was there. Like, and I typically don't post bad things or like mean things. And then even like last night, I saw the Verge special about how the creator economy is destroying the internet. I posted something only to Threads, and then I deleted it like an hour later because I was like, it wasn't bad or controversial or mean or whatever, but I realized that sometimes through whatever course of events, your entire persona might be encapsulated in a post, because that one post might get put in a news article or a headline, and all of a sudden you are that. The titular example is Justine Sacco, who tweeted before she got on a plane going to South Africa, "Hope I don't get AIDS." And when she landed, she did not have a job, and she worked in PR, and she had to she had to delete everything because of that one tweet. Now, that was a really stupid tweet. It was racist, and she should not have posted it. And so maybe the fact that she did revealed something about herself, and maybe that's a bigger picture, whatever. But all that to say, one post is sometimes all it takes. Another example, if you listen to the world of podcasts that I listen to, John Roderick, Seattle musician, posted something about a can of beans and his daughter, and literally went viral and became Bean Dad for like a month and had to leave social media. Literally had to quit doing some of the podcasts he was doing because his co-host did not want to be a part of that. And so there are just moments when sometimes you are not in your best in mind, you don't think something out thoroughly, and you post something, and unless you have the wherewithal to delete that later, it's just out there. And like you have said earlier in the show, if it's on the internet, it's permanent. So people can screenshot your posts, people, whatever. And so I try to be very careful about that, but I get a little antsy about like, oh, maybe my travel might be dictated by something I posted on social media like 10 years ago. So I mean,
but you've traveled internationally. I traveled internationally just a month ago. When you get to the border, you just know like it would be really inconvenient if they decide to not let me through, but they could. Like they don't have
at any
to.
point. Yeah,
you have no right to enter another country.
I've traveled to Tel Aviv 4 times in my life, and at any point, at any time, it felt like I may or may not get in.
I mean, they may not. Yeah, especially Tel Aviv. Like you may not even get on the plane to go there. Like,
and you may or may not get out.
Right.
Like literally, my second time leaving Tel Aviv, I was in security for 2 hours because I had a bunch of filming equipment, and they went through every cable and battery, and almost missed the flight. So like, I totally understand. Like, and I also knew like there was no point in fighting anything. Like, you're at their mercy. You're in their country, and you're not a citizen of that country.
And even coming across the border, Customs and Border Protection have a different threshold for what they're allowed to check you for, because they have the ability to make sure you're not bringing anything illegal in. And that is true. Like, for example, I'm not suggesting you do that, but they can, like, if you unlock your phone for them, they're going to check it. Yeah, I'm not suggesting you should unlock your phone for them, right? But I'm just saying, like, and I was actually I told the story before. I was getting on an airplane in going to North Carolina. I went through, behind me was a group of gymnasts, one of whom was my daughter, and they were with their chaperone, who was an adult woman. But because she had like 8, 12-year-old girls with her, they made her open her phone.
Really?
Yes. And it's a standard practice, apparently, because they're trying to prevent trafficking. And I'm like, I'm so thankful. There's nothing in my phone. Like, I don't want that hassle. I'm glad I wasn't the chaperone. I would never be a chaperone with a bunch of gymnasts because it's terrifying.
So wait, they made the chaperone open their phone.
Open the phone.
And look at what? What did they look at?
I don't know. I did not stick around. I just kept walking.
You're like, I don't know these people.
I'm like, I don't even know that you can do that. But if you tell them no, they're just not going to let you through security and on the plane.
And that was a domestic flight.
Yep.
TSA.
It was like Detroit to, whatever, Charlotte or wherever we were going.
That's wild. Anyway, I guess let me end this by saying, for all of our listeners and viewers, be careful what you post. Be careful what you put online. Like Jason said, assume everything that you post is forever, public.
Everything you upload. I don't even care. Like, you upload something, assume it's there forever.
Yes. Like, I have a lot of pictures on Flickr. I don't know what's there. I need to check my Flickr, but they still exist. I think they're mostly travel photos because I use Flickr. I think
people probably are a little more worried about the stuff that they didn't post publicly, but maybe that's just rattling around the back of their Dropbox.
Yeah, that too. Sheesh. I got to check my I'm going to delete everything. just scorched earth. I'm just going to napalm everything. Anyway, if you've been on Twitter as long as I have, maybe think about deleting tweets older than X years. That's all I'll say. I just didn't. I even went through like my website blog posts and I was like, you know what? Maybe I just don't want this out there for whatever reason. So anyway, digital hygiene, we'll say. Anyway, all right. We want to get to personal tech because Jason actually bought a phone. Last thing I'll say, SpaceX is actually pursuing an IPO maybe in 2026, raising far above $30 billion. So SpaceX might be a publicly traded company in next year. I think this would be the first. I mean, I guess Blue Origin is Amazon's, but that's not public, right? Yeah. So SpaceX would be the first like publicly held space exploration company. So that's pretty wild. But yeah, IPO next year possible. We might get OpenAI IPO next year. We might get SpaceX IPO. A bunch of IPOs.
It's gonna be a big year for people who throw money at stuff.
A big year. My son was asking me about like investing in stuff. He was like, jokingly, should I invest in GameStop? I was like, man, a couple years late. But
let's talk to you about some Reddit meme stocks.
Stonks or whatever. So anyway. Speaking of, last thing before personal tech, because you sent me this article, the Time named their person of the year. But it's not a person of the year, Jason.
I know. They're really like...
They've been stretching this a lot.
That's true. I think you're right. Because like, it's like the year they named the person of the year and it was like the iPhone. And you're like, hang on.
Yeah. No. So, but the person of the year is what? All these AI dudes?
Yeah, it's just the dudes making AI stuff, basically, is who they're calling the person of the year.
Okay. Oh, yeah, great. I thought they were going to say AI was the person of the year in some like...
No,
like
it's
dark
just
future.
all the people leading us into that future craziness.
I see. You got Sam Altman. You got Jensen Huang, Elon Musk. Is that you got the Anthropic CEO, Microsoft, Satya Nadella,
AMD CEO.
Yeah, you got all of them. You got all of them. Ironically, as you pointed out, there's an Ask Anything AI box at the bottom
covering
of that article.
The story. So instead of reading the story, they just want you to chat with it.
It says, "Welcome to Time AI." I'm gonna be honest. I don't want time AI. I don't want to ask it anything.
Well, but this is happening more and more, Stephen. At the top of any article you go to, like it'll just be like AI questions you can ask the article. I'm like, can I just read it? If I wanted to ask AI, I would copy and paste it all into ChatGPT and ask questions.
That thing. So anyway, all right, let's do a quick few personal tech segments. You bought a phone. Tell everybody what phone.
Oh yeah, well, okay. So I didn't buy a phone originally because this thing happens to me every year where I get these review units and I buy a phone because I buy the one I want, and then I end up with basically the same thing as a review unit, and it's annoying to have two of the same phone or whatever. And so I waited, and it was good because the three review units I had this year were the iPhone 17 Pro Max in orange, which was a problem for me, the iPhone Air, and then the iPhone 17. And I started with the iPhone 17 Pro Max. Everything about it is amazing except for it was orange and it was too big. So, and I was like, okay, great. So then I decided I'm going to just use the iPhone Air for a while. I did this when I got back from all my travel and had been using it for a couple of months. The iPhone Air is not months. I'm sorry. A couple weeks is my main thing. And I love everything about it except the cameras. Battery life is fine. Whatever. It definitely was lower than the iPhone 17 Pro Max, but like my laptop is lower than the 17 Pro Max by the end of the day. And so like I just was, but the problem was the pictures. I couldn't do it. I am someone who cares a lot about being able to take pictures. I do it very much a lot with my phone. So I bought the 17 Pro. I did buy it in the most boring color available. I don't care. This is the color
Silver.
I want the least. I told Steven when I was in Vegas, everyone was rocking a 17 Pro Max in orange. I understand in that particular scenario why you would, unless you were like there for Red Bull, in which case you probably had the blue one, but because you wouldn't want to be rocking McLaren's colors. I totally understand all that, but I did not want the orange one. I wanted the most neutral one possible, so I bought the silver one. And I also only bought the 256 version. It's fine.
Really?
I got like 90 gigs of space available.
Really?
I was real worried because both the 17 Pro Max and the iPhone Air that they sent me are 1 terabytes. Right. So I was a little bit worried that when I went about going to get the copied over, I was going to have a really big problem. And then I did the iPhone storage thing and I looked at it and I'm like, I'm only using 163 gigs of it. So it's like, why would I buy the 512? This phone got expensive, Steven.
It is expensive. I use 260 gigabytes on my phone. And
I'm not sure.
I do have 60 gigabytes of music, which I feel like I probably don't need to have all the music downloaded.
I have 92 megabytes of music downloaded.
92 megabytes?
Yeah, I don't download music out of my phone. It's totally fine. I mean, Photos is obviously the largest CapCut, which actually I could get rid of all the data in CapCut because I just like occasionally use it to make vertical video, and then I don't need those anymore.
Right.
Lightroom doesn't have very much, but that's because it's all stored in the cloud.
What's your Photos? What does Photos say?
On the phone, Photos says...
Mine's
17 gigs.
Okay, mine's 15 gigs. Yeah.
But again, brand new phone. I haven't really downloaded very many phones. You know what I mean? Right. So the whole library of 90,000 photos, most of them are not downloaded.
They're not. Yeah. But Jason, you got a phone. You bought the one phone you didn't get as a review unit.
That's correct. And it was the one I knew I wanted because the 17 Pro Max is too big, and the iPhone Air is too camera disabled. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been loving my silver Pro Max. It is big, and there's a lot of times when I try to use it one-handed where I'm like, I cannot reach the far left side of the keyboard unless I do this weird like tilting mechanism to hold my phone in a precarious position. But I've gone caseless now. The 1 year I actually have a case collab with Ondar. I went caseless, and I've been enjoying the caseless. I've not dropped it yet. I'm sure the first time I drop it, I'll probably use a case, but yeah. I don't know. I like it. And no scratches, because the deep blue one, I feel like you were going to see some scratches. So
I did buy, it has not arrived yet, but I did buy a Sooty leather back for it.
Okay.
I should actually get, so for the Pro Max, because I couldn't stand the orange, I bought this Belroy case.
Yeah.
Which the only thing I like about this one is that it is a little bit, my favorite is the Nomad leather case. Just, it is.
Full leather case.
Yep, but it's just heavy.
Yeah.
And this Belroy one was actually lighter, so that's why I bought this one.
Sure.
So if I buy a full case, I'll either buy the Belroy or the Nomad.
You mean you'll buy the Ondar?
I looked at them. It's just...
I'll have Ondar send you some.
Okay.
They'll send you some stuff. Also, the Kindle Scribe ColorSoft came out. Every time I I see these devices come out and I want to try them, but then I don't. So I mean, you actually write on these things. Does the ColorSoft tempt you at all?
Okay. The gist of it is every time I talk to anyone about the Remarkable Paper Pro or Paper Pro Move, the thing they're like is, oh, but I can't read books on it. So there's so many people who are like, I'd love a writing device like that, but wouldn't it be cool if you could also read things on it, right? So the Kindle Scribe ColorSoft, well, they make a non-ColorSoft version of it, but it's not out yet. But the Kindle Scribe, the idea is it's like, actually it's just a Kindle, but oh yeah, you can also write on it. Yeah. So if the thing you really, really want is a writing notebook digital thing, the Paper Pro is still better. Dude, I did write an article about this. You could have linked to it.
I didn't see that. I'm not seeing them in my RSS
I know,
reader.
And they're also not loading into our member area anymore. So there's clearly something wrong with whatever.
Oh, that's not my fault. Your RSS broke.
I don't think my RSS broke.
Tell Ink, fix your RSS. This thing is not cheap, though. It's $630.
It's essentially the same price, though, as the Paper Pro.
Sure. But you do get the pen? Oh, yeah, it includes the pen.
Here's the thing. It's a good Kindle. It's actually faster than the Paper Pro, the Remarkable. The Paper Pro is better to write on. So if what you really want is a writing device, get the Paper Pro. This is usable to write on. It feels a little softer, a little bit less like paper, but nothing like writing on an iPad screen, just to be clear. It's a million times better than that. The pencil pen thing is actually really nice because this actually feels like an eraser when you're writing with it. And then it has a button that you can assign. And like I assigned it to the highlighter. So I can write. And then when I push this button, I can then highlight without having to change tools. That's very, very cool. And I wish that both Apple or Remarkable would do something similar to that. But if you erase, like you can't erase using the backside of a Apple Pencil, can you? Yeah. And using the Remarkable you can, but it feels very hard. Whereas this feels like an eraser. It's very different. So
wait, so do you have the new ColorSoft? The Scribe ColorSoft?
Yeah, dude, I told you that.
I missed it.
I wrote a review about it, and I'm holding
it's because your RSS feed is broken. I didn't see it.
Bro, I just texted it to you.
Okay,
Crazy person.
ColorSoft Scribe. Here we go. Jason Aten, author at Inc. What Amazon's new flagship Kindle Scribe ColorSoft gets. Wow, this headline.
I know. I told my editor, I'm like, and I did mean the pun. So, but yeah, and it's an okay color screen. The black and white screen is better than the color, right? Because the color is like a layer over the top of it. So the black and white, better. The color screen is like useful if you were using like a textbook and you wanted to get a diagram, and it's much better in color, or all of your book covers in your Kindle library show up. But anyway, I would not get this if the thing you want is a really good writing device. The Remarkable is better for that, and it's also easier to get stuff on, meaning like take your PDFs and put them on there. This is weird. Amazon has these weird, like Amazon.com/MYK is like manage your Kindle and upload my document. It's like weird thing. There's not like a portal you can just go to manage this. It's kind of weird. Yeah. But that's again because Kindle is like one click, buy it in Amazon and read it. Whereas all this other stuff is kind of extra. But if what you were really looking for was like a device that does a little bit more than just writing, and you also have a big Kindle library, this might be worth it.
So one thing is like when the very first ColorSoft came out, I actually got one to review, and I didn't have this issue, but there was a lot of issues with the display. Some had like yellowing on the display. So has Amazon figured out like the color display on ColorSofts? Like, we're good?
I mean, I think it's good. It's not great. It's not an iPad. It's probably it's hard to compare with the paper. Remarkable because again most of your PDFs are just in black and white anyway, right? So it's kind of hard to compare how good it is, but I would say I was going to just pull something up for you to take a look at. I'll pull up, I mean they don't look amazing, but when you just look at the book covers, they look fine.
Nice. Yeah, it's nice. Okay,
anyway,
no, it's nice. All right, well, we'll put a link. I'm going to put a link to all of Jason's articles. Today's show notes will be onlyinc.com article. No,
I'm so excited.
No, I will include them all. You can also get the show notes via email if you would like. So if you listen in the car, but you can't click something because you're driving, you can get an email. But anyway, we're going to go record a bonus episode. I want to talk to Jason about fonts. I'm going to talk to him about the other thing, the creator economy, briefly. But you can support the show, get access to our bonus episodes, our unedited feed, which includes an increasingly longer pre-show. You get Primary Tech Daily. You get an ad-free version of this show. You can do all of that at join.primarytech.fm. Just click the link down in the show notes. You can support the show there. You can support us directly in Apple Podcasts. You may or may not get chapters. I keep testing on my beta device, And which, by the way, which I thought was interesting, if you run the 26.2 beta, which 26.2 is probably coming out next week as we record, that they started doing the auto tagging podcasts that are mentioned in other podcasts. So like on the Vergecast last Friday, they mentioned things like The Ringer, they mentioned Decoder, and like Apple is just like tagging them from this episode. So it's interesting. I'm curious what will be tagged in our show for that. But anyway, you support the show. We'd appreciate your support. You can listen to the bonus episode. We're going to go record that, but leave us a 5-star rating and review in Apple Podcasts. Let me know what your default browser is. But what was the other thing? I asked something else earlier. 5-star rating and review. Anyway,
man, it was so long ago.
Just go listen
all
back
of you
to the
listening.
whole show.
Remember,
you all remember. Just go back and listen to the beginning of the show if you want. But anyway, leave us a 5-star rating and review. We'll get to 500 next year. Thank you to everyone who helped us get over 400 5-star reviews. We'll be a 5-star podcast once again, eventually. I don't know how many it'll take, but thank you all for doing that. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.